Hello, my name is Mia Sheets, and today I'll be talking a little bit about how I live up to my ethics and values as a future planner and sustainability professional. In planning, we often are faced with many situations and instances where not everyone shares our values of sustainability or equity or empowerment, but I wanted to share how I stay grounded while still working productively with clients and communities. So, first, let's talk about some of the things we're referring to when we talk about this core challenge. And when I mentioned that not everyone shares the values as we, as planners, are expected to carry. So, we see this issue of others not sharing values in instances like when the community resists density despite the sustainability benefits, or when clients are prioritizing profits over equity, or even when cultural norms conflict with planner ideals like trying to change a car-centric city to be more biker-friendly. So my personal values, as probably are the same for many who pride themselves as part of the professional planning and sustainability environment, are rooted in equity, inclusion, sustainability, of course, and empowerment. And I use these as sort of a compass that guides how I think about my role as a planner. To me, planning isn't just about physical spaces, it's about people and it's about justice. A lot of this, especially I think the empowerment and inclusion side, does stem from three key things I learned in my community engagement course. The first being that trust begins with listening. Second, that engagement means meeting people where they are, so not expecting them to adopt my language or frameworks. And third, that the most effective solutions are co created, built together with communities, not just for them. And what I've realized is that these aren't really separate steps, they reinforce one another. Listening builds trust, and trust makes it possible to meet people where they are. Meeting people where they are opens the door to genuine co creation, and co creation in turn deepens trust and keeps the cycle going. When I talk about listening first, I don't just mean as a single action. I mean, listening as the foundation that allows all three of these to connect and unfold in practice. So, when values clash in practice, my first response is to listen, because listening is where that cycle begins. Not just hearing what people are saying, but listening to why they're saying it. Listening shows respect, and it often reveals deeper motivations like safety, cultural identity, or affordability that once I understand, then I can connect those motivations and concerns to broader sustainability goals. But then this raises an important question. Who exactly are we listening to? Are we truly creating opportunities for those who need to be heard the most? We can't force people to come to community meetings and planning conference, but we can definitely cultivate spaces where they are not only included, but welcomed as essential voices in the process. Because planning that does not involve conversation with those affected most is not planning at all. It's imposition. It's a reproduction of inequity and exclusion, leaving us disconnected from the very communities it claims to serve. And that's why listening can't stop at hearing individual voices. It has to move toward shared power and shared creation. And that's where the framework of co production comes in. This is a framework that I've really taken to heart. It's a framework that means sharing power in both knowledge and action. So, what exactly is it? Co production is much more than just a buzzword, it's a way of doing planning that redistributes power. At its core, co production means that communities and professionals share responsibility for defining problems and shaping solutions. So instead of planners arriving with a finished plan, both sides bring what they know. Communities bring lived experience, professionals bring technical expertise, and together they create solutions that are stronger and more legitimate. So, what does this even look like in practice? It might be residents leading workshops to identify neighborhood priorities, or community members co-designing stormwater strategies alongside city engineers. It's not about one group like consulting the other. It's about like genuine collaboration where both sides' contributions carry weight. And why should you even care about all this? I would say it's because co-production produces plans that are more legitimate, more resilient, and more likely to succeed. When people see themselves in the process, they're invested in making it work. And it also addresses the ethical challenge I started with, where even when values differ, co-production creates common ground by centering fairness and shared ownership. So planners are often, almost always, you could say, in the middle of different like power dynamics. So on one side, we hear community voices. On another, we respond to client interests. And above all, we have a responsibility to the public good. And that mediator role can be difficult, but it's also where planners can have the most impact. A big part of my ethics is moving from speaking for communities to empowering them to speak for themselves. So, this could mean supporting leadership development, creating information and meetings in more accessible formats, making technical information understandable so that communities can drive the process, and also keeping the community at the forefront of planning by collaborating with local entities. So, I feel like environmental justice is a clear example of why these ethics matter. Robert Bullard, I believe that's how you say his last name, often referred to as like the father of environmental justice, has shown us how communities of color are often placed near pollution, and this isn't by accident. So many communities of color were deliberately zoned next to highways, landfills, or industrial zones, putting them at higher risk of pollution. And for decades, mainstream environmental movements often overlooked these injustices, focusing more on like wilderness protection than on neighborhood survival. And that's why, as a planner, equity isn't just an add on, it's a core part of sustainability. A plan isn't truly sustainable if it leaves people behind. So, environmental justice shows us why ethics matter in practice. And this is where like professional integrity comes in. Like through all of this, I hold like one main principle, and that's to like keep ethics steady, but be flexible in strategy. Like my values don't change, but the way I apply them has to shift depending on context, culture, and the people in the room. So I live my ethics in practice by listening deeply and translating values into shared language, empowering communities as co creators, and balancing flexibility and approach with steadiness in principle. As a future planner, I commit to centering equity and empowerment in every project I touch. Even when it's difficult, even when others don't share those values, I believe that planning without justice isn't really planning, it's just development. So, my role as a planner is to keep people and equity at the center of that. And so, with that, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. I hope this presentation showed not just what my ethics are, but how I bring them into real world planning practice. And I will leave you with a question of your own, and that's how will you live your ethics when values around you don't align? Thank you.